exploring how we can raise our consciousness to new and wonderful ways of living this life that we live here. And a byproduct of this resurrected consciousness is a life that is rich in meaning, in joy and peace, and health and love, and all those wonderful qualities. So today we're going to continue that theme and talk about the resurrecting of our consciousness to new, extended, heightened levels of God awareness. So I need to take a deep breath before I say all these P's here. There's a lot of P's in today's talk for some reason. So, exploring plenty of powerful practices positioned to exponentially protract our perception of God's perfect and plentiful presence in our lives. So say that again 3 times. Okay. As we look at each of these practices, which we're going to go over today, your job is to be a reflection of where you are with all of them. And each one individually, together, we raise the consciousness, there's only one here anyway. We're all entangled, we're all interconnected, there is no separation. That is our spiritual teaching. So, as we come together as a community, it's even more powerful, more powerful. So first, practicing the presence, how perfect that Reverend Rita read. I was going to quote Joel Goldsmith, and she reads the book. So, practicing the presence, what does it even mean to practice the presence? So, it's a phrase we hear, and perhaps we use it a lot in our lives. But really, what does it mean? The word practice suggests some kind of activity, right? Practicing the presence does not just mean to sit in the silence feeling after God. It is not just what you feel, but what you do as well. So, practicing the presence is an action. It's an act. When a doctor says he's practicing medicine, he's not referring to a feeling. He's referring to an activity. When a lawyer says she's practicing the law, she's showing up for life, not just a feeling, again. When a person says he or she, now we have a lot of these, if you don't know, is a religious science professional practitioner, which is Reverend Rita and many of our congregants. They've studied for over 4 years just to get to that level, way over 4 years. But they spent that 4 years in activity, honing their ability not just to feel, but to see God in everything. And according to Ernest Holmes, who founded religious science, Science of Mind, he says this in his book, Science of Mind: endeavor to greet the divinity in everyone you meet. A unity of spirit in all people and running through all events. These are spiritual practitioners. In order to practice the presence, we must deliberately, consciously make God a part of every waking moment, as we can remember that. It's much better that way. And every action that we do, we must constantly and deliberately become an avenue through which the divine flows and speaks through. We're always divinely guided if we're open and receptive. It was in the reading from Joel Goldsmith. If we are actively receptive to receive, we shall receive. It's all here anyway. Everything we want is within us anyway. But we have to open up to that. We have to recognize that, because most of us weren't brought up with that idea in our minds. And I think a lot of us are more skilled at practicing the presence and more skilled in practicing the absence of the presence of God. We really don't feel it in all situations. And to really believe it, it cannot be absent from one and present in the other, even if we don't like what we're seeing. We don't have to like it. God is there because we are God. And I say that again with strong conviction. Each and every one of us are powerful manifestors in our lives, and we co-create with the infinite intelligence. So from the moment we get up in the morning, do we think God lives as me? I am an expression of God. Today I'll remember to let the divine be the divine through and as me now. Wonderful way to wake up. Wonderful way to wake up. The thing to remember is that this thing called God was no more centered in Jesus than in you. The difference is Jesus was more centered in God. He knew the Father and I are one. He knew it. And that makes him a great mystic, one of the greatest teachers to live. The creative energy of life itself, the ever-presence of light and perfect wisdom and endurance are always within us, always. There is never an absence, for God is present. Our need is to get centered in the consciousness of this creative flow of all that is. In other words, practicing the presence of God is a conscious awareness of the depth of life. When we begin to see this pure consciousness in this sense, then God becomes a reality for us. And it's a good word, God. A lot of people don't like that word. It's a good word. I like that word. God. So what are we then? We are pure consciousness, as is God. Pure consciousness. Infinite consciousness. It's a way of looking at life where we are always guided, we are always cared for, we are always exactly where we are supposed to be. So the first way, we're going to do the practices, the first way to then is to position ourselves to exponentially protect those P's, our perception of God's most perfect and infinitely presence in our lives by purposely, number one, practicing the presence. And we do that as that's the first one, practicing the presence. And I think we just talked about it. It's an activity. It's an activity. We be the kindness. We be the, when I talk about love, I think of respect. I think of kindness and good deeds, good actions. That's where I go with that word. And that leads us into practicing the principles. In this thing called You, great book by Ernest Holmes, he says, never let nothing come forth from your mouth that you would not wish to have manifested in your life. So we have to watch what we say and what we think all of the time, and that's a full-time job, I must say. Now, Ernest Holmes had a protege, Bill Hornaday, and he wrote a book called You're Aladdin's Lamp. In it he said, can you afford the consequences of your thinking? Do we ever check, what am I thinking now? Because usually it's a bunch of mind chatter that we don't even want, and it's there, taking place. We can switch it in that moment. Jesus, the master teacher, it is done unto you as you believe. your beliefs. These are all statements that reflect the principle of life that says what you think, feel, and say, believe, but value and do what you would like to see in your life. When you realize this and live accordingly, you are practicing the principle. And there's a metaphor for how practicing the principles work, which this comes from Ask and It Is Given, a book that will be taught this summer. Yes, in a wonderful little class. And Jerry and Nessa Hicks write this: when you drive your vehicle, this is a metaphor, when you drive your vehicle from place to place, you know your starting place as well as where you want to end up. You know at this point, I'm reading from the book, in your evolution of consciousness, you cannot get there instantaneously unless you take a quantum leap, which I have not learned how to do yet, which I would like to learn how to do. Anyway, that's not in the book. This is in the book. And while you may feel eager or even impatient to get there, while you may even tire of the journey, you do not get so discouraged that at midway point you turn around and go back to your starting place, do you? Not usually, unless you forgot something. Nor, they say, do you get afraid and drive back and forth from your starting point to the midway point until you collapse in exhaustion from this never-ending journey that never gets you where you want to go. We don't do that either, or do we? Think about life. How often do we get like halfway to what we want and we turn around and come back? A lot of time. Hopefully nobody here though. All way advanced in consciousness, I know that. No, you accept the distance between, I'm still reading them, between your starting point and where you desire to be. You continue to move in the direction that is required, and you do it. You follow the flow of your intuition and your guidance system. But when it comes to our lives, we often do those things. And that we thought sounded silly in the travel, but we do them in life. So now is to get focused. But when it comes to our lives, we often do those things that seem so silly in that metaphor. We set an intention for the life we desire to experience. How many of us do that? Set an intention for what we want to experience in life. Because our thinking is creating. It's always creating. But then if the journey takes a while, we start to get impatient. And we might even get frightened that we won't get there. So we scurry back to where we feel comfortable. Might not be the advancement we want, but we feel comfortable there. So we stay there, stuck. We don't want to do that. So if we move forward, we can announce to the world, if we want, that we are reaching our destination. We are fulfilling our purpose of why we even came to this planet to live these human lives. Ernest Holmes tells us again in Science of Mind, taking as the starting point the idea that the essence of our life is God, it follows that we use the same creative process. Everything is a creative process. We teach that in our foundation class. How do we create consciously? Everything originates, this is Holmes, in the one. Comes from the same source and returns again to it. As God's thought makes worlds and peoples them with living things, so our thoughts makes our experiences. By the activity of your thought, things come into your life. And we are limited only because we have not known the truth. We have thought that outside things controlled us, when all the time we had that within that could have changed everything and given us the freedom from bondage. That reminds me of the Wizard of Oz and Dorothy at the end of the movie, when Glinda the Good Witch comes down and says, you had the power all along. We don't know the power we possess to create our lives, create something you want to live. That's what I say. If you are diagnosed with an illness, we must know that we are always at choice. Choice about how to respond to that news. And when we walk out of the doctor's office, we can find some things to be grateful for, because gratitude changes everything. Most of us know that, yeah. Being really grateful for anything, for everything, for the beauty of the day, for the sun. I'm so grateful for the sun. I thought, I know it always shines behind the clouds, but I was getting a little, not worried, but anxious. Because we did have quite a cloudy, rainy, snowy experience this winter. But the sun is always shining. We just have to have that knowing. So practicing the principle, that was the second one. And principle is the spiritual law. It's the thing, the substance, and the ethers, and all around us that makes something happen. We think, and it becomes. If Jesus did it, he thought, and it was instantaneous. That's how the divine creates. We have to go through processes. We got to go through all of these beliefs and all this other mass consciousness. But the law responds to what we think, do, and say. That brings us to, what do you think the third practice is? Begins with a P. Anyone know?
Patience.
Anyone know? P. Prayer! Good try. Thank you. Out of the mouths of babes. We have a really important one we have not mentioned yet, and that is prayer. We do affirmative prayer, or something called spiritual mind treatment. Affirmative prayer just sounds more user-friendly. How many agree with that statement that we really change things with that powerful tool of prayer? The prayer we do here, we learn in that foundational class, is a 5-step process, and it's all affirming our good. It's saying in the first step, God is all there is. All the beauty, the love, the joy, all of that is God. Unification, we are that which created all that is, so therefore we are creative beings. And the third step is claiming our good. That's the realization, claiming the good that is ours as already done. The fourth step is always going to be gratitude. And then the fifth step is to release it as law, changing it to all the practitioners in the room. It's no more releasing to the law, it's releasing as the law. It's much more inclusive, uniting, and powerful. So prayer changes things. But what must it change? It must change us, because the prayer is done through us. And I want to be very, very clear about something here. If you think that your prayer is for the purpose of getting God to do something for you, you are barking up the wrong tree. That is not the purpose of affirmative prayer. Remember, you already exist in a field of infinite potentiality, infinite possibilities. Everything you can imagine is already within you. And you pray to open up to accept it and experience it. And prayer is a thought that is in alignment with the infinite. The great objective in prayer is to be still and know that God is us. Substance, its intelligence, and the source of all life. You know that God already is. This creative genius already is. All love, all good, all plenty, all wholeness, allness already exists. It's already there. God is all there is and much more. And so are we as God. The objective of prayer then is to know, to absolutely know that we can open our hearts rather than beg life to be good. Life is already good. Claim it. Or for God to bring good into our lives. That's duality. We don't do duality. We do oneness. So no one's bringing anything. We just open to it. It's already present. And we feel it. We accept it. And we live it. And the sun, I love the sun, because it's light, and I love light. The sun shines on everyone alike. In consciousness we get out of the shadows. There's a lot of shadows in life. We get out of them. We let the light shine through our innate potential. And we proclaim statements of spiritual truth, the good, the positive. We affirm that we are now successful, that we are now prosperous, that we are now healthy, that we are now at peace and transformed by the renewing of our minds. And we solidify our belief that what we just said is true by moving into that attitude of thanksgiving and gratitude. And believing the words of Jesus, this is found in Mark 11:24, therefore I say to you, anything you pray for and ask and believe that you receive it, and it will be done for you. What did I just describe? And that was spiritual mind treatment. We believe it's already done, and we act as though it's already done. So prayer is a regular, ongoing practice in our lives, or it should be. And the fourth, last one, finally, practice powerful partnerships. Do you have a prayer partner? Do you have someone that you pray with? Or that an accountability person? Or a mastermind group? We have practitioners here who are so trained to help you through that. And with that training comes so much wisdom and so much, it's a direct line through the God in you. They are trained to be that presence and to bring it out in all who are open to it. We are here as a community, and we're spiritual partners for each other. I have my prayer practitioners, because it's sometimes so cathartic to have someone that's going to know the truth for you in times when you cannot. So, my friends, you want to resurrect your consciousness to new heightened levels of God awareness, and you want to exponentially protract your perception of God's most perfect and infinitely plentiful presence in your life, then consciously practice the presence, practice the principle, practice prayer, and practice powerful relationships. And then you will be there, no doubt about it. So let's bring all four of these practice this together right now in this thing called prayer. So I'm going to do it. Short prayer, very short prayer. But each one of us just deepens into these practices. So I ask you to close your eyes. And in this prayer, we know that the purpose of this prayer is that each and every one is open to the good of the divine as it flows through each and every one here. That loving energy, that peace, that power is our power, our peace, and our energy right here and right now. We move forward in life, never alone, and always knowing that we are guided, we are loved beyond anything we can imagine. For this loving energy embraces all that it has created, and we are the creations of pure consciousness. So we are pure consciousness. And we allow this to flow through us, to guide us through life, to make the proper decisions, to enjoy the beauty that is all around us. And so I know each one is guided in their own particular unique manner, and the fullness of that God essence is present, foremost in each one. I give thanks for this knowing. I give thanks for the spiritual truths which cannot fail. And I give thanks for the love that is in this joyful gathering spiritual center community. And I give thanks for all that is, because I know it is all God. And so it is. Amen.
So it is.